Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone else, we are back with Scarlet Fever. We don't have Scarlet Fever, but at the same time, we do have Scarlet Fever because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are closer, 1 week closer. And I did puke twice this week. That's a separate video on the channel. Joseph, any sickness to report from your end of the country?
Nothing yet. Still trying to work on figuring out Violet Fever so that we can change the name. But until then,
yes,
this is where we are.
I did have a Violet Haze drink, which was like this blueberry lemonade mixed with lavender syrup and lemonade. It was very good. It did make me lean a little violet, but obviously we're still Team Scarlet. Joseph representing with the red shirt today, and we got a really good show because we're talking all about big leaks, small leaks, and apparently a lot of waifus in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. My favorite part of the leak, so that'll be a good part of the show. No, but we're talking about Pokemon systems evolutions. I do want to point out, and Joseph actually was the one who you can thank him for thinking of this, that Pokemon leaks usually have a good bit of truth. So there probably is some stuff that will end up being true about the game. So if you're like completely spoiler averse, you can plug your ears, but it's right now a fun discussion of a number of theories and leaks. Some of them will be true, some of them will be false, grain of salt, all that good stuff. But yeah, let us know what you think of these in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoy this video. And let's roll into another awesome Pokemon podcast. Kicking it off with a little question of the week, which is you still Violet? You okay there? You staying on that side of things?
I'm still Violet as of now. I'm not gonna lie. You've already mentioned it. Got to rep the Scarlet in some way. So there's still room in the heart for it. We're still very, very early. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I just want to do a little heat check every week and see where we're tipping. I feel like right now we're evenly split, and that's nice. But things can always change, and they've changed quite a bit with some of these recent leaks. We got a lot of interesting information to dig into, and I think we want to start off with kind of a concept that you were educating me on a bit, which is that Scarlet and Violet, while being the new game in the franchise, the new game in the series, seems to be sort of the final product of a bunch of different ideas and maybe even scrapped games over the past couple of years.
Yeah, so we were kind of discussing this last week, and we thought it better to just kind of hold off and save it for a time that would kind of be better suited. So to kind of discuss this concept, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. There was this write-up, just let me bring it up real quick, known as like the Chinese Uncle Saga. And there is a line in there specifically that mentions that Scarlet and Violet will be pulling heavily from old and scrapped ideas. Now, the reason why this was just super interesting to me was that, and like I said, Zach, we already spoke about it, but essentially back in, I want to say 2016, 2015, around the era of Sun and Moon, when Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were being teased, there was a big leak for something called Pokemon Stars.
Yeah.
Now, Pokemon Stars was very interesting because it was supposed to essentially be the third version of those games, but it was going to come to the Switch because the Switch was just releasing. It was like, 2017 was right there. It might have even been around the initial launch of the Switch. So people were kind of hyping up this HD version of Sun and Moon to be this Stars version. But what was super interesting is that then that leak started to evolve into its own kind of game.
Right.
And again, I do apologize for people watching. I wanted to provide the screenshots of it, but there was a 4chan leak that specifically talked about certain aspects of this Stars game or, whatever it was turning into. And one of the things that was so, in my opinion, believable was that they were trying to say that in this new game, the player had the choice of two different starting labs, essentially. So two different professors, one that would lead in offense, one that would lead in defense. And essentially what it was trying to say was there was going to be a new gimmick of like offensive play versus defensive play. Mm-hmm. And depending on what path you took, like your final starter, your final Evo for your starter would be different. The Pokemon you run into would be different. Essentially, that was like kind of the idea. And then when Pokemon Sword and Shield was announced, I felt like that was it. Like I was like, okay, this is where this concept is coming, because Sword being offense, Shield being defense, it just made so much sense. But it never happened. So when the Scarlet and Violet trailer happened and I saw that there were two professors, something just kind of clicked where I was like, this seems like a concept that they were sitting on for a very long time. And it made that old leak and many other old leaks kind of gain credibility like way later on in their life cycle, which was crazy because you don't often see that. I mean, even the region being Spain based is something that has been spoken about, you know, even before Sword and Shield. So to me, like, while some people are like, oh, how are we getting this big Gen 9 game so fast after, you know, Sword and Shield wasn't that long ago, especially Legends Arceus, I feel like freaked a lot of people out that we got that game and now this game within a year.
Yeah.
But I do think that they've been sitting on this for a long time. And from the visuals, from pretty much everything, you can tell it's a ground up reimagination of what this franchise is. So I'm not surprised if they did, in fact, look at these old concepts, these old scrapped ideas, and try to kind of put them together and reinvigorate the series.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I stand with that. I do think that we're going to see a game that has been at least conceptualized years prior, you know?
Yeah, we joked about it last week.
Very interesting.
You say goodbye to Masuda and you say hello to all these interesting ideas. And it does kind of feel like these were things that were, you know, it puts it in a bad light to say, oh, these are the rejected concepts from all the past games, but ideas that maybe were, you know, either half-baked or that they were kind of teasing or testing, and they went more traditional, and here they're being a bit risky. We talk about the professors a lot last week, and, you know, you're going to get one of two in the games. You have this sort of professor of the past, professor of the future, and we have more to talk about the professors, including some interesting theories, just about the fact that, like, okay, one professor per game, yes, Scarlet Violet, but you got to imagine the other professor factors in. And I saw this very interesting Reddit theory about the professors like trying to get home. You know, so Professor Sada is trying to get back to the past, and Professor Toro is trying to get back to the future. And he doesn't look like Marty McFly, but he does have some evil eyebrows. So he could have some, you know, nefarious plans. And the fact that you mentioned this, the fact that both professors do look like they're riding that line. They don't look like they're ready to just like make sure mom feels good about Professor Oak taking you on this journey. They don't look like the plant named professors, the ones that are happy and joyous and, you know, just like all about the good of Pokemon. They look like they have some baggage. And so I do like this idea that if you pick Scarlet, you know, you might run into Professor Turo as the villain. And if you pick Violet, you might run into Professor Sada as the villain. I think that is very, very interesting, and have to imagine that both factor into the game in each game in some way.
Yeah, I mean, like, even we were just talking about it. I think there's considering on the site, as you mentioned, was like, oh, hey, you get one of the professors based on which one you choose. I do think it could be I don't think it's a stretch at all to imagine that both of them were up and coming to be professor. You know, both had the chance for that title. One wins based on which one, you know, you pick, and then that game basically starts from there because they are both clearly young.
Yeah.
So I imagine they're getting this professor title pretty early on in their career. And you have to imagine if there is somebody that is in competition with you for a title that you both want, and you both have completely differing ideas of, you know, because I mean, they're clearly passionate about this future and past thing. I don't understand why they would cosplay as this like Tron man and cave woman if they weren't passionate about it. So I imagine if one of them beats the other out, it's going to be pretty traumatic for them. Making the turn to kind of evil. And I don't necessarily, I don't want to like imagine that they're just these like evil people off the bat. I imagine that maybe it stems from like they believe in their ideals.
Cause, yeah.
And so it makes them do things that end up being bad. And also I really, it's not a leak, but last week you mentioned that it ends in a race.
Yeah.
That needs to happen.
Yeah.
That's not even, I don't want like, that needs to happen, a race to something. But I do think that their designs are both too strong to not have them both in the game.
Bingo. Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
I agree. I love the Zach facts about the race, and I'm going to throw one more Zach facts at you. We'll have a lot of these between now and November. Is there any chance that the other professor is your rival? Or takes the role of the rival?
Oh. That would be very interesting, actually. Especially considering if you're siding with one, again, you're kind of automatically making an enemy of the other. That's why I think it's so like, it's kind of easy to imagine that, yeah, they would probably make a rival out of you just off the fact that you're just completely, taking the other side. I can't imagine that they're going to be cool with you.
Right. And I know Nimona is the easy choice for rival, but I'm just reading through her description and trying to get really, theory crafting with it. Your friend Nimona has a sunny and energetic disposition. Yeah. She loves Pokemon. She's going to serve as a reliable guide. I don't know. She looks really nice. She looks like a big sister. I don't know that. I mean, she still could be your rival, but I think it'd be pretty fun if, Professor Turo comes and steals the other starter or whatever out of spite, and then that's that's who you have to challenge throughout the whole adventure.
Yeah, I mean, Pokemon has been, and this is something that I think a lot of people are starting to kind of pick up on, but Pokemon has always been trying to, as I've said before, mix and match certain aspects. Mm-hmm. So, going back to what we talked about last week with Kukui being a professor turned Pokemon champion.
Right.
It would, I could very much see a failed professor turned rival, especially because what we've noticed with the previous rivals in Pokemon is, when it first started and it was just red and blue, it was very cut and dry. Two kind of friends going on a journey, kind of competing to make it to the end. By the time we hit Diamond and Pearl, things got a little weird because we had two rivals. You had Dawn or Lucas, depending on if you picked the male or female character. Mm-hmm. And then you had Barry, who was your best friend, who was also a rival.
Yeah.
So in that game, you essentially had two rivals. And since then, they've always tried to kind of change the way it is. I mean, look at, you have X and Y. You technically had four rivals. Granted, some of them didn't even Pokemon battle, but the idea of what a rival is always up for debate these days. Yeah. Like in Pokemon Sword and Shield, you had Marnie, you had Bede, you had the main rival Hop, who was also just your friend. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we've been seeing a lot. So I think it's very normal to see hey, this is your friend. You guys are both starting your journey together. You'll be rivals, but there's no animosity there.
Sure.
So having the other professor do it would be really cool and also kind of intimidating, because that's the first time you have a rival that's that much older than you.
Yeah. Stupid
someone
kid.
who's technically established.
Yeah.
Exactly. It kind of gives it the anime feel of Ash going against Team Rocket, right, where it's this is so funny. But I think that would actually be a really cool way to utilize the other professor and also mix up the formula.
Absolutely.
Which would be awesome.
Absolutely. And in terms of story, there aren't really a lot of leaks on that aspect right now, besides it being, a future past game and some sort of time element. Multiple leaks that we've seen, Chinese Uncle, Chinese Riddler, both saying that this is a large lineup of new Pokemon and a really cool lineup of new Pokemon, which I think is super exciting. Personally, I found the new Pokemon in Gen 8 not to be one of the best sets. So I'm looking forward to this being really fun, but I'm nervous, and I want you to kind of educate me here. This leak that we're pulling from Central Leagues here says there's at least 4 Waifumon and multiple Husbandomon, according to the leaker. Okay, fill me in here. I'm a bit confused.
Don't worry. Luckily, you have a Pokemon fan and an anime fan, so you get everything here. Essentially, to not be crass about it, these are Pokemon that are would be considered, I guess, attractive as a humanoid type. That you have your Gardevoir,
sure,
you have your Lopunny, you have your Machamp, the weirdly kind of humanoid Pokemon that could in some circles be considered, a nice husband or wife.
Yeah. All right.
Material.
All right. Little dating sim.
So what I'm yeah, exactly. We're getting a Pokemon dating sim. Could be the story, honestly. That's very precious.
Truly precious.
Yeah, from truly precious. From what I'm understanding, it looks like we're going to have quite a couple bipedal, more humanoid Pokemon, and that's cool. Those always tend to end up being the favorites of the generation. I think there are a lot of people who are getting really tired of it, like, with Sprigatito, for instance, like everyone's like fighting to keep the paws down. Don't make this Pokemon stand up. Let's have a cat fully evolve, especially coming off Litten not too long ago, who was a little cute cat that became a luchador. I think there's there's a lot of people who want the Pokemon to be monsters, not these humanoids things. But, at the end of the day, I think the designs are always strong, regardless of what we get. It's always very Pokemon. But yeah, looks like we're getting a lot of those humanoid Pokemon, which could be good or bad, depending on how you feel. I think good, what's exciting for me is the fact that apparently these are some of the strongest designs that we've had in a long time. I've been hearing that from a lot of people who have claimed to see it. And a lot of them are all saying the same things about the types of Pokemon. So there's no way I can't be excited about it,
It bodes well. And we talked about sort of like the Gen 1 parallels, and in the Pokemon that we've already seen, and sort of just the nature of the way they're designed. According to Riddler Khu, Sprigatito's final Evo is one of these humanoid type Pokemon with a God tier hidden ability. Not sure if you have any comment on that.
Yeah, so a hidden ability is kind of a non-point right now, just because basically what a hidden ability is, for people who aren't aware, it's most Pokemon have access to an ability. Well, all Pokemon have access to an ability, but most have access to two. And these can be, kind of, you could breed for these abilities, but like they are very, very strong and change the way your Pokemon is used. So just like off the bat, there's like an ability called Intimidate, which is just kind of a great ability to have. The moment your Pokemon comes out, it lowers the attack stat of the Pokemon that you're fighting. Hidden abilities, however, are, they tend to be more useful and harder to get, of course. So, anytime you hear hidden ability, it's not like this Pokemon is just going to be strong off the bat. You're going to have to work for it for the most part.
Yeah.
But with Sword and Shield, we actually saw, I believe it was either the first DLC or the second DLC where they finally added the hidden abilities for the 3 starters. And, just as kind of an idea of how strong these are, Cinderace, the fire starter, which is the little, the rabbit, his hidden ability was called Libero, which is like a brand new ability specific just to him. And it turns him into whatever the type of move he uses. So if he uses a dark type move, he becomes a dark type Pokemon. So you get like the stat advantage, you get, you basically like, he becomes the type. So also if it's fighting a water Pokemon, you can turn into a grass type before, you get attacked. And then now you just avoided dying, essentially. So hidden abilities are very, very strong. Now with starters, they will almost never have them right off the bat.
Yeah.
So even though this ability is going to be God tier, you're not going to have it for a while.
Yeah.
So if you're still wondering who to choose, I think that, don't let that be the deciding factor.
And they also, claim that the final Evos are Grass Dark for Sprigatito, Water Fighting for Quaxly, and Fire Ghost for Fuecoco. They say that Quaxly's final evolution is the favorite of Riddler Khu. I don't know how you're not excited, though, about Fire Ghost. That, to me, just screams, pick me.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, that was, I guess, sadly enough, the deciding factor for me. I was really trying not to lean into Fuecoco just because I think it's probably the fan favorite. Just because it's like it's so cute.
Has that changed?
Because
Sprigatito seemed to be the front runner at the beginning.
Yeah, I think Sprigatito was initially probably just because it's a little grass cat.
Yeah.
It's hard not to.
Love it.
But I think as time has been going on, especially with, I don't know if you saw, since we're talking about leaks, there was that leak for Fuecoco's final design. And it is eerily realistic. Like, it is a very, very, very good leak. I would not be surprised if it is 100% true. It even with the Fire Ghost typing, it still kind of works. I know a lot of people thought it was going to be Fire Fairy, which would also be kind of cool, but Fire Ghost is just sick. And like I said, he is based on a ghost pepper. Like the design is essentially, I mean, that's too strong. So yeah, and even with the water fighting, that's also, it's not that we haven't had it before. It's just a really cool idea. Grass Dark though, I don't know. That's not a great typing. Play wise, design wise, I'm sure it'll look cool, but that's kind of a big turn off for me personally.
Gotcha. Yeah, they talk a little bit more about new cross-gen evolution for Dunsparce, cool fish Pokemon, a cool fish Pokemon. That's I don't know, fish Pokemon I think struggle to be cool, so that's impressive.
For sure. Yeah.
There will probably be regional variants, and another theory that I wanted to bring to the table that I find just brilliant, and I hope, goodness gracious, this is true, is time-based evolution. So like an ancient evolution for a past Pokemon, a future evolution. This is all conjecture at this point, just based on the emphasis on time and past and future in the trailer, but that is something that's like a killer gimmick and killer idea. If you could go back and touch on an ancient Arbok or bring forward, a future Electabuzz, there's just so many interesting things that would, based on the designs we already see from the legendaries, like you can do some cool stuff when you try to really emphasize sort of their place in history, if you will.
Yeah. No, I think number one, just from a design standpoint, it fits so well conceptually that I can't imagine not that they haven't thought of that. Yeah. And with that being said, it's so strong that how could you think of it and turn it down? Also, it's really easy to implement when you really think about it, because it's like, let's take some fan favorite Pokemon and let's make two versions of them. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that's really as cool far too. As a design, it doesn't, it's not as hard as creating something from scratch. It just goes, hey, let's take a Pikachu. How can we make it, modern, more, futuristic, and how can we make it, ancient?
Yeah.
So I think it's something that if they did I'm honestly really hoping that that's at least something, at least even if we get one Pokemon where that is the idea, I could imagine, in every Pokemon game, there's the fossils,
right?
You get to pick, usually you have a couple fossils. I think it'd be awesome if you can have a fossil and be like, do I want to bring it back to life how it was back then? Or do I want to enhance it? Do I want to try to
see, this is where it
turn
gets
it
so
into
cool
something more
with two professors? You have a little DNA capsule. It's who do you give it to? And that's how it's gonna,
exactly
take shape. That would be
exactly sick. To me, it's just it's the future and past concept is so strong, and it's shocking that we haven't touched on it yet.
Yeah.
9 generations in, and we're just now seeing what is possibly the best split in games.
I love your idea of having both for each Pokemon. I wasn't even thinking that way. I was thinking some ancient Pokemon, some future Pokemon, but the ability to sort of split off like that and make a choice is super nifty. It sounds like you're going to be making, or they're making the choice for us of Pokemon, according to Riddler Khu. There will still be some Pokemon after Scarlet Violet that have not appeared in any Switch game queue chatter about national decks. I mean, if this is a large generation, I feel like we just have to get over that at some point. I know some people won't, but I don't know. How do you feel about that? Do you want 1,200 Pokemon in this game?
the way I feel about it, and it's so funny because we kind of touched on Digimon last week,
Right.
funny enough, but I'm gonna bring it back for another moment to shine.
Beautiful.
The Digimon games, which especially recently have been very, very good, like very just good turn-based RPGs, and they have not like really stepped in the way of Pokemon at all. They kind of carved their whole, like with Cyber Sleuth and those types of games. One thing that they've done that I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot at all is they make it a kind of a mission statement to not include every Digimon. Because the idea is they're going to include the ones that are not only most relevant to the story being told, but they want to make sure that in having them in there, they're going to be represented the best that they possibly can.
Purpose for each
No, this is something that Pokemon... Exactly. This is something Pokemon always kind of struggles with, just because not only does Pokemon happen to have, essentially 1,000 Pokemon now, but also just the fact that the move pool for Pokemon are so big. People don't understand that this has been, we're approaching almost like 30 years of different moves and generations adding more moves, which means animators need to have these like ways to utilize these moves without having to blow a budget that's ridiculous. Because the thing is yes, we can all look at Pokemon and be like, this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Of course they can pay animators to do multiple like moves for Pokemon, but when it gets down to it, it's not just 4 moves per Pokemon, it's 50. It's the potential chance to do all this. In Digimon, for instance, they know which Digimon have which moves, and they can animate them specifically based on that. So like you just said, everything has more purpose. It feels more real. So people don't go like, oh, why isn't my favorite Digimon in this game? Because at the end of the day, it's like they'll be in the next one, but the ones that are here now feel fully realized, feel important. And I think when you're looking at Pokemon, a lot of the times you don't feel that because you're like, well, where's this budget going if when a Pokemon uses Tackle, it just bounces up in place twice and then, we get the hit effect.
That's a good point.
But they set themselves up that way. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but for me, I never really cared whether or not we had the full Pokedex, because at the end of the day, it's like, how relevant are these games going to be in 5 years anyway? There's going to be a new Pokemon. Yeah. So I don't know. As long as the game is fun, and as long as the Pokemon that are on show are respected and make sense for being there, I can't be mad. Like Legends Arceus, for instance, was the perfect example. I didn't find myself wishing more Pokemon were in it because it just felt like the land was realized. It felt like these were the only things that were here. I didn't need to see every Pokemon.
Hashtag respect for Pokemon.
That's from my respect. Exactly. Oh no.
Put some respect on.
I feel like
what?
I just feel like that's such a hot take.
Yeah.
But it's not really that hot. I don't think the national debts.
It hasn't flared up yet
much
this time, which is good to see. And there's much more on regional forms and legendaries. But let's pull out for a minute scope wise. The main gimmick. Now this is across both this Chinese Uncle leak, the Riddler Khu leak, and they're talking about some sort of type swapping job system. In the Chinese Uncle it says similar to job changing in Final Fantasy, but with types. Riddler Khu is saying more. The gimmick is a new concept of mega evolution, referring to 3 different types. We do see the circle in the initial trailer of like all the types on the wheel, the like sort of stained glass floor. Do you see this being something where you can, at free will, change the type of your starter or any Pokemon, or how could this become, this idea of job switching, type switching, become like a central gimmick, you think?
Yeah, if they're, in the Chinese Uncle leak, if they are comparing it to the job system in Final Fantasy, that's interesting. That's not only like such a good solid ground to start from, but it makes every Pokemon so much more valuable, just because if you're telling me I can throw on because like I'm kind of mixing both leaks together to figure out in my head what I think is most possible and something that Game Freak would do.
Sure.
So I'm going to use the 3 types gimmick mixed with the job system idea. So what I imagine is I have my Fuecoco fully evolved and it's Fire Ghost.
Yeah.
I wonder if what they mean is I can attach a job to basically give it a 3rd type, which would be, so like I could make it Fire Ghost, ground now. Now the reason that's interesting is just because what it does to the gameplay is completely insane. We haven't even, there hasn't been a time where like, it's already rock, paper, scissors.
Sure.
So you have 2 types. Now you're basically inviting things that are double effective, things that are now half effective, things that are like you're messing with like percentages of how strong something
the
is.
math is getting
you
real
had a
intense
3rd type
here.
in there. It's getting real intense. Yeah, we're about to see that blown up if this is real. But also like, because again, to me, jobs, like a job system, if I could make my, Fuecoco a ninja, because that's Final Fantasy, that would be sick. But I just can't see that being.
It seems too in depth, right? Like, I mean, he says a new concept, kind of like of mega evolution. So I like your idea more of like an attachment or something like that, where it kind of is like a boost for a bit. But even still, like you said, I wonder if it's just the starters. I wonder if it's any Pokemon. Is there any chance that it's character related? I mean, I know that's very unlikely, but when they do say job system, could your trainer have any effect on your lineup? Like, could something that changes with your trainer have an impact?
I mean, that would be cool. Like, even if we dial it back for a second and try to, look at everything like what we're kind of putting together. I imagine, what if it's like, depending on the professor that you pick, there are other choices similar to that in game where you can kind of choose to align yourself with a certain character, and then you get the perks of being aligned with that character. So if we're talking like job system, I'm just going to use Final Fantasy jobs as like a reference. If I talked and aligned myself maybe with the Dragoon character, or like there's a quest for the Dragoon job type, now I equip it to my character, and all of the Pokemon on my team maybe get some type of advantage based on that.
Yeah.
That would be cool. And it does kind of simplify it, where you're not going and micromanaging each individual Pokemon to have like a 3rd type. But also it does kind of welcome in the fact of like, now all of your Pokemon will be the same, like will have the same boost. I think that could be very dangerous based on how it plays into because like, for instance, nobody wants a full mono type team in Pokemon where it's like, oh, I only use water, or I only, because at the end of the day, conceptually that's cool, and like design wise that's cool, but you're going to get rocked if you fight someone who's strong against you. So does having a single boost on your whole team benefit you? I guess it really just depends on what that system is. The 3 types thing, I think, can be very cool, but I imagine it'll be a big headache if it is just literally attaching a 3rd type to a Pokemon. I feel like that can make even some Pokemon unbeatable. It kind of breaks the game, so I imagine that if they do that, it has to be in a controlled fashion.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, I'm just thinking of how the nonlinear structure ties in. It would be interesting if something with this gimmick was related to the order you completed the gyms, especially with the multiplayer. So, if we are acquiring job types or acquiring attachments from the gyms that we battle, that would be sort of a nice way to really differentiate, like, oh, you went and fought the electric gym and you got this cool attachment. I want to go do that one next, and sort of bring benefit to which order you did them. I don't know. I think it's important to sort of like incentivize player choice in not just like, oh, this is the grass, this is the fire, but like, okay, there's a reason I heard about this modifier. I think just, again, ways to evolve this beyond what it's been would be really nifty. But I'm eager to see what they do, because no matter what, type job changing is just very, like you said, it is a dangerous road to go down, and how they handle it. You know, that we're putting a lot of faith in them. We're putting a lot of faith in non-linear, open world, multiplayer.
I know.
I don't want to like worry everybody, but it does start to get like, oh my gosh, like they need to have a home run in multiple areas for this to work great.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it really is just them clearly throwing everything they can. And I don't know that it's to see what sticks. I almost see, like with these leaks, a vision. Like I almost, like, I mean, even how much we're able to just, again, at the end of the day, like we're able to, from a 2-minute trailer, as well as like the first teaser and just a little bit of information, kind of create a game.
Yeah.
And that to me is something, and this isn't just like we're using the basis of other Pokemon games. We're actually actively avoiding using previous Pokemon games to build this, because it almost seems like that's what Game Freak is doing already. Something that you actually just said that made me feel a little bit better about the open nature of it is, again, because I think from a story standpoint, this game is probably going to suffer a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to have a bad story. I really don't think it will. Pokemon is usually very good about these things, but I do think it's going to lose focus in it being open-ended multiplayer. Like, I do think we're just going to lose something there. Sure. But in what we're losing there, you actually just gave me some hope related to the gimmick. And that's, what if they do the approach of, say, something like Mega Man, where, you know, when you play a Mega Man game, I don't know when the last time you played a Mega Man game is, or anybody for that matter, but you usually, you know, there's the intro stage, whatever, you learn how to play. You're like, okay, this is cool. And then you get hit with the boom. You get the 8 robot masters, and you pick which ones you go against. Whichever the first one is you go against, it's just you as your base form.
Right.
But when you beat that level, you then get the ability of the person you beat. So what if when you beat a gym, you acquire a badge, and that badge could be equipped to your Pokemon, and then they gain that third type. So like if I beat the fire gym, I get the fire badge, which I could put on my Pokemon, which gives it the fire typing. Now, obviously, if Fuecoco is my starter, that's not going to be very beneficial to me. But what it does do is I can at least put that on something else. And so now you have this kind of metagame of like, well, which gyms should I take out? And the fact that there's exactly 8 is also very funny, because that's literally
that's
exactly
the Mega Man thing. Well, and then you can create those different routes where if you want to make the game really hard for yourself, you can go backwards. You can go
exactly.
You can. There's going to be like a set order, like, hey, this is the main through the game, and that does feel better. And you know, thinking about the story, I was wondering also if they do have like sort of a central hub city, if they can make sort of forced story moments where it's like, no matter what gym you beat, okay, like, oh, you're being called back to the hub city, and so you have to go there for a cutscene. You know what I mean? Like, there's ways that they can sort of mitigate the open-ended nature with forced storytelling. So I think they can still do it, and especially the 2 professor thing, that does sound like they are interested in some sort of unique story. So like you said, I don't think it's going to maybe be the greatest story ever told, but I also don't think it's going to be like, you know, thrown out. I don't think they're going to just ignore that. I don't feel like they'd have 2 professors and be taking that risk if they were story adverse here. They're apparently not legendary adverse either, because there's a leak discussing 5 different forms for the legendaries. And then, of course, the legendaries being rideable, which we've touched on. We love the motorcycle bandits here.
Yes, we do.
5 forms for these dragons?
5 forms. Yeah, I think reading that initially was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, definitely we knew 2. We knew 2. That was happening because we had the normal form and their motorcycle.
Right.
Form. 3 would have threw me off. But you're telling me 5? I can't imagine this doesn't have to do with the 3 types thing. Like, I feel like this has to be part of the gimmick, which then if that's the case, if there's 5 forms, does that mean, I feel like that kind of shuts down my idea of like the gyms giving you the 3rd type ability. Just because if it's 5 forms each, I feel like that opens, you know, what other Pokemon are going to have these 5 forms and what are they relevant to? Because I can't think of something that there's only 5 of in Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know? So it's
Is there a chance that
it becomes a bit confusing.
Is there a chance that the 3 types is past, present, future? Like some sort of weird past, present, future gimmick that, you know, I'm not saying like, oh, every Pokemon gets a past evolution and a future, but like something about it, like almost even what you're saying type-wise, like past form makes it stronger, future form makes it faster, present form makes it balanced, you know, almost borrowing a little bit of what you were saying about like the attack versus defense, and then what Legends Arceus is doing a bit with their agile versus, you know, something like that.
Yeah. Throw out everything we were talking about before. That's such a strong concept, just because it literally was referenced that it's a new concept of that, like essentially comparing itself to Megas. And Megas is the only time that we've seen Pokemon take on a new form.
Yeah.
You know, like we have never seen another instance when a Pokemon has changed itself so drastically as a gimmick.
Right.
You know, we had Z moves, we had, you know, Gigantamax, I guess, but that's not like, it doesn't stay that form.
Right.
You know, it's not really and also Gigantamax was on such a smaller scale. I mean, no pun intended there. But so like to me, it's just like you saying that is so, man, I think that might be it, because even if you take into account the legendaries, there was a little bit of a thing that I wanted to put out with the legendaries.
Yeah.
That it's not a leak, but it was an idea that I kind of had, and I've seen some people have similar ideas, so I thought maybe there's some credence. Is I think that the legendary, because one thing I will say about the legendary, and again, we did kind of talk about it last week, is that the design is definitely different from anything we've seen prior.
Yeah.
It looks a lot more engaging, a lot more designed compared to most other things. And there's a man-made element kind of attached to both of them, not just the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just having a gigantic wheel in your chest.
Man, you haven't seen any animals with big wheels? Come on. You haven't what zoos
armadillos?
Come on. Looks totally
Yeah, you're
natural.
right. I need to expand my horizons.
Looks totally. You're just not precious enough, Joseph. You just don't.
Right under. Yeah, I got to work on it before the game drops for sure.
Gosh.
But one thing that I always thought was what if there was one legendary, and that one legendary is essentially, you know, far from being relevant or alive even. Maybe it itself is a fossil. Going back to the concept that we were talking about before, this is actually where I stemmed that idea from. My Siri just constantly wants to be featured on these podcasts. But what if this legendary is being worked on essentially to bring it back?
Yeah.
To you know,
now we're talking.
Bring it back to life. And depending on the professor,
yeah,
you have this, you know, that's essentially what brings them back, is their way of doing it. Now, the reason why I say this is because now with that, it makes the 5 forms, we're all here now, because you essentially have the initial form of whatever the Pokemon is, right? Then you have the past and future. And then for these 2 specifically, you would have 2 different motorcycle forms.
Yeah.
Which hits 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not even like reaching really that it exactly lines up to how many.
Well, here we go, man.
Said,
I think we just cracked the code, because okay, Koraidon and Miraidon, and they're breaking this down in sort of the Japanese words, and they're saying, you know, Korai is ancient and Raido is ride, and then Mirai is future and Raido is ride. So future ride, ancient ride. And so yeah, what if it's they're like, we're building a motorbike Pokemon, and you know, are we going to take it to the past? Are we going to take it to the future? How do we get this? I think we just cracked it. I really do. I really think it is a same Pokemon.
Low key, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's pretty sick. I like that a lot.
And then it would even made sense, because I think the same way that everyone assumed initially that both professors would be 2 professors in the games, that was kind of a red herring, because as we know now, it's only 1 professor per game. Again, not saying the other one's not in it.
Sure.
But 1 is a professor. This could also be a red herring. Hey, we're so used to having these 2 boxed legendaries. You know, it's been this way since essentially Gold and Silver. What if for once, it was just really one. And we're seeing the choices of the player. Like, you are literally picking your legendary. It's not like you happen to stumble upon this one. It is now like whichever side you choose, you are essentially creating it. And this just, like you said, the 3 type thing, I just think it's such a strong thematic through line for everything, that it's like, hey, you know, if this is what they're doing, I'm completely on board. That's such a dope idea. And to see like 3 types of some Pokemon, like a future, a present, obviously the present is a given, but the past as well. Like, and like you said, even affecting the speed or strength of the Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's always what Pokemon's been about with the gimmicks, is how can it be appealing to the casual audience, but how can it stir up the competitive? And that's something that does both, because for the casual, you're getting 2 new designs. You cannot complain about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But for the competitive, now there's an extra layer of, if I have like a fast Pokemon and it has a future form, making it even faster, but maybe a glass cannon, is it worth doing that? Or do I want to cut my losses and keep that speed, but also now add some strength to it? Like, that mechanic is just so deep in and of itself that it's like,
I feel like that's more manageable than triple typing. Like, in terms of, you know, we were talking about the mathematics of the competitive scene. I feel like triple typing, like you said, introduces all sorts of, like, we're taking this to the nth degree, and it could be, you know, franchise breaking. It does seem like they're implementing some awesome ideas here. It seems like this is going to be like you said, like the idea of choosing a legendary, the idea of choosing the order. This is the most forward-thinking Pokemon game. And rightfully so, that it's a future past themed title. Like, I really think we're going to be impressed and surprised with how they're taking this in such a unique direction. I mean, I guess we could be disappointed and find out that we're crazy, but these are based on like smart people. You know, I don't know if you want to fill them in, but you know, Riddler Khu has been right about a lot of things, especially the recent Pokemon games. And he's very like respectful about these games. He's not trying to spoil them like outright and leak like screenshots or whatever, but he's trying to give reliable hints. So this isn't just like, a 4chan post. This is a known quantity who has somehow insider info on multiple generations of games.
Yeah. And not only that, but as you touched on quickly, like one thing that I noticed going through kind of his tweet history is just, he's been very respectful about kind of delivering this information. It's never been to ruin the games. Yeah. It's always been to be playful and kind of get people excited. And one thing that I will say is that even when people solve his like Riddler, like his riddles that he does, because he does these weird like collages of like things.
Yeah.
When he does those things, it's like, it's never outwardly said if people are like super correct or like what parts they're correct about. It's just kind of, you know, he definitely does leak information, but it's in such a way that I almost feel it makes the games more fun. And you know, with that being said, it's like, that's why I as someone who loves Pokemon and as someone who loves being surprised by it, I also love this aspect of it.
Yeah. The
community coming together and creating the game essentially before it comes out. It's always been part of the hype of Pokemon. Always. Since before, you know, leaks have even been kind of real. You always had kids talking on the playground about these fake Pokemon that, you know, if you want the, you know, Pika-Blue, you know, you go out and you do this thing and it happens. It's like, it makes it feel what Pokemon should feel like, is this thing that we're constantly you know, we're learning new information and we're trying to process it and we're trying to make, you know, sense of it. And I think it makes the experience more fun. But also with that being said, seeing that Lechont's evolution will be a female that is ugly.
That's a surprise.
Hurts a little bit.
That's a surprise. Last we were talking about it's going to be some, you know, macho muscular fiend, and now it's back to a sloppy, ugly thing. Okay. There's some small details here on Smoliv's evolution is the regional grass female. The regional bug Pokemon's Japanese theme. I always love our regional variants. And both leaks have sort of touched on apparently 2 of them. I think it's just fun to see, you know, the Alolan forms, the Galarian forms, and now these forms.
Yeah.
And because of the Spanish inspiration, it seems like Tauros is kind of a lock. We're seeing that from multiple leakers, and that just makes too much sense, right? Some sort of bowl,
of course,
Pokemon. And then the other one is this Spanish mouse tooth fairy, which could be interesting and sounds fun as well.
Yeah, I don't know how you land on that as a design choice, but you know what? They've probably been doing a lot more research on Spain and its history. So I'm sure they know where that's coming from, especially if there is anybody who like knows anything about, Spain and its history and kind of folklore, stuff like that. It will always help to have that information when moving forward, because Pokemon notoriously grabs from things like that.
Right.
Also, from what I've seen on Khu's actual Twitter itself, they did share a post of a old fan made regional form for Diglett.
Oh,
which was like a geyser essentially.
Nice.
So it kind of looked like a Alolan Executor, where it was like huge, absurdly big.
Yeah.
But this one was, again, it was a geyser, and it was watered round. And what's funny is he shared that and tweeted, "This is strangely close."
Oh.
Like that was essentially it. Like I don't remember the exact term, but essentially what he was saying was like, this is like scarily similar to what we're getting. And in the leak, we get a regional form of for a water ground Pokemon.
Oh.
Now, obviously, Diglett is not water ground, but it doesn't mean it can't be. And this wouldn't be its first regional form either. Alola gave it a regional form as well.
Yeah,
so
beautiful hair.
I think that could be cool, but beautiful hair. So I think that's interesting. Also, Gogoat is back, which is awesome, because Gogoat was in X and Y, and it was like a little goat that you were able to ride, and that was sick. And I don't know why it was never back, but it's back now. So
we have to imagine that
allegedly
all sorts of riding is going to be like all sorts of transportation, right? I mean, looking at Legends Arceus, I think that is something that they will carry over. Is like, okay, you can ride on the fish, you can fly in the air, you can speed on the ground. It seems like, yes, the legendaries will be the fastest mode of transportation for that race we're talking about at the end. But other than that, like, I have to imagine there's some pretty epic open world poker riding, right?
Yeah, I do. Sadly, I can't imagine it's as in depth as Legends Arceus, just because I feel like, with Legends Arceus, I feel like movement was where they started with when it comes to that game design. Like, it was very integral to, like, essentially the entire gameplay. It was, you're never stopping. By end game, like, I was riding, jumping off, throwing Pokeballs, flying. Like, it was just like,
it's traversal.
It didn't even feel like Pokemon is. Yeah. So I don't think, just by looking how the game plays, it does have that kind of sword and shield like heaviness to it. Like, when the characters are running, it looks like their animations are kind of locked in. Whereas when you look at Legends Arceus, it seemed a little bit more, I'm sorry to have to say it, but Breath of the Wild like, where it was like, you can see that this person can roll. Like, you can kind of tell in the animation that this is someone who's agile. This isn't, but in the current games, like in Scarlet and Violet, you do kind of have this, like, the old running cycle of, like, it just looks like a little kid kind of jogging.
Right.
Granted, I don't know anything about 3D animation. They could very much be able to make them go into a full dive roll into calling in a bird and getting flown up. But to me, it looks like a little bit more of a stretch. But I can't imagine, especially with Gogoat coming back, that they're not going to have at least some Pokemon that you can certainly ride. And I really do also hope that we do get a Vespa, because
gotta have that.
I want an electric bike.
Yeah, gotta have that Vespa. That would be good. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff out there. People are kind of posting things all the time. Names of Pokemon, gimmicks, things of that sort. We tried to kind of focus on the ones that seemed the most legit or came from the most reliable sources. Was there any others that you have seen that, whether they're just interesting or you think they could have validity, that you wanted to throw out there?
None in particular, but I know like when we were speaking about the like previously mentioned before concept of Pokemon having the kind of ancient and futuristic forms, I think just that concept needs to be kind of spoken about more in general, because I just think like if it's not in this game, I really sadly feel like that was a huge missed opportunity, because that has to be my favorite. That's unfortunately it's not a leak. It is more of a theory, but to me, that's just the thing I want to give the biggest highlight to, because even with like what we just came up with, using that as kind of a, like a bouncing off point,
right.
I think it's just such a good idea. And it feels heartbreaking to me if this is not the direction that they're going in.
Yeah, I saw one that was just sort of a 4chan leak, but it was kind of like what we just talked about. And I actually just saw this now as I've kind of been perusing to make sure we covered everything. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but it's talking about a wristwatch type gadget that allows you to spin either backwards in time or forwards in time to add a trait to your Pokemon, which is kind of, what we just discussed, and saying, they last for a couple turns. And yeah, I mean, that would feel really time travel, the two professors. I feel like it has to be something, I feel like it's got to be related. I sorry for being the ones to figure it out, but I think we figured it out.
I know we kind of spoiled it, we also are the writers on the game. Sorry to drop that one.
Surprise.
On you guys. Weird little side note. Last week I mentioned that they had James Turner as the art director for Pokemon. He just stepped down, which is like,
and he's making
crazy.
the sickest game
and I don't
ever.
know if,
did you see what he's working on?
He's making he's making what looks to be the absolute coolest concept of a game I've seen in recent years. Also, it's his art style through and through. The moment it came up, I was like, okay, this is why.
Yeah, it looks really great.
What is it called? It's like the Scribe.
Plucky Squire.
Something with the Scribe. Plucky Squire, that's the one. Yeah, seriously, if anybody hasn't seen that, look that up, because that is
going
awesome.
into 2D, into 3D. So it's all over.
And it looks beautiful. But so it's funny that like that we lost two kind of heavy hitters for this Pokemon game. And I really think, it may be for the better in terms of pushing the series forward, because it just seems like this thing is doing some weird stuff. That wristwatch thing that you said is also really funny, because at first I thought you were saying like a wristwatch Pokemon. Because what's weird about that is it does, Khu specifically mentioned there's one more Objectmon this gen. And Objectmon are essentially like the Klefki, the Rotoms,
right.
like those types of Pokemon. So like it being a wristwatch could very much, and honestly, I don't even write that off, because we have Pokemon like Rotom that are Pokemon, but also like the Pokédex.
Yeah.
In the recent games, the Pokédex has been Rotom. So to me, like there could very much be a wristwatch Pokemon that also, or it could even be Rotom in a wristwatch that makes you go back and forward in time. I don't see any problems with that. Like it doesn't raise any red flags. That could very much be it. But yes, as a gimmick, I think that makes even more sense of like, just like, because with Mega Evolution, it was literally a button that you could press that would Mega Evolve, but it was a once in a battle type of deal.
Right.
So once you use it, that is essentially done. So I imagine if this wristwatch thing is a real concept as well, it would be similar to maybe, when the fight menu is up, you'd have like a fast forward rewind.
Yeah.
And then whatever Pokemon you have out for the next couple of turns will be either it's prehistoric or futuristic.
Gotta worry about
the
the mental state of these Pokemon getting sucked forward and backwards in time.
Oh yeah, they are. They are like, are they becoming their ancestors and or like predecessors, or is it actually them? Because if so, and do they live those years in those moments? That's a tough,
rough life to be a poor bald Pokemon. One last leak that I really liked. Again, this one is just like random, no credit given, just a leak. Was that the gym like sort of puzzles are racing based, so all of them are going to be like vehicle. Like they say, the ground gym, you have to drive up this tower, and at the top of the tower is where the leader is. But I would be down for a real like racing theme throughout the game, and allowing that to sort of carry forward this whole motorcycle idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, if all of this, because the thing is all of this comes together very well. Like, there's nothing that, to me, negates any of the other things we've spoken about. Like, we can have this very, motorcycle traversal heavy game, especially because it is open world, where even the gyms kind of incorporate this, and the final race against the bad guy could be very much in line with something like that, while also having this mechanic of past and future, just because to me it doesn't take away from the other side. You can have all of this and it works really well, which is something that has never really happened for leaks like this. Usually one leak kind of negates another one.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have all these leaks springing up and working hand in hand with each other. This is something that does not happen. But what makes it so confusing is that none of this sounds like Pokemon.
Right.
Like, that's what's so cool. Is it none of it sounds like anything.
That's what I was going to say. It's
so cool.
Easy to sort of sift through the leaks previously, because you're like, okay, linear story, 8 gyms, town to town. Like, you knew the formula, and so you could say, that doesn't make sense. That can't fit. But here, open, I mean, gas stations and motorcycles fit. Like, that's never been the case. And so we are, I hope it's with good reason. Like, I feel like we're really prepping ourselves for like an incredible game. And, they've got their work cut out for them, because we're expecting something dramatically new. And I hope that they understand, by saying truly open world, and the things they've shown 4-player, that we do anticipate something dramatically new. And at this point, I can't see how it is anything but that. But I always, it is still made by the Pokemon Company, so I always feel a little squeamish when we get so excited.
Yeah, it's tough to manage the excitement for it, for sure, because it's like, we've been burned so many times before. This is very like we're getting real Stockholm syndrome with the Pokemon Company. But at the same time, it's like, and we've said this already, this game could honestly be garbage. But what it is going to do for the future of Pokemon is unprecedented, because whatever they get back from this, whether it is critically acclaimed or critically panned, they will know moving forward what Pokemon is. This is the first time we have ever seen them go, this is what Pokemon will be. They have never stuck to something and was like, since the first games, they have never been like, this is Pokemon. This is the first time that we're seeing a mainline game so heavily promise things that have never even been done. So if this is not liked, they will go, okay, we'll stay in our lane, or hey, we'll try something different. All I know is that this either works or it doesn't, but no matter what, the next Pokemon games to come will be affected by this. So it's hard to not be excited. And I'll be honest, if this game is even 75% as good as Legends Arceus was, it at the very least will be a good game.
Yeah.
It won't be revolutionary, but it will be a good game. And that's not a hard promise to keep, I imagine. Also, they just need to deliver on that precious adventure that they keep promising.
Yeah. I mean, they're charting a new course for sure, in vibes, in design, in multiplayer. So I feel like that is a good sentiment to close on. This is going to be redefining the franchise regardless. The leaks are very interesting. Let us know which ones you are hoping are real the most, and how you feel about sort of our time type mechanic that we're talking about, past, present, future. And do you think that, we've keyed in on what the gimmick is here? I hope that we get something soon. There's supposedly a direct out there, maybe a treehouse, maybe more information. Obviously, we will adjust our weekly schedule if that happens. Otherwise, we'll see y'all next weekend for some more Scarlet Fever. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Enjoy your theory crafting. And let's see if we can get... Next week, Joseph's going to have red hair, maybe, to get on the Scarlet theme.
Yeah, something.
Back to
I got to find the hair first, but we'll get there.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good, man. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a great week. SwitchForce out.